Welcome everyone, join us today as we dive into the incredible life and unforgettable legacy of Meat Loaf, the powerhouse rock singer and actor whose operatic voice and larger-than-life persona captivated audiences worldwide. So let's dive in. Meat Loaf, born Marvin Lee Aday on September 27, 1947 in Dallas, Texas. Meat Loaf, born to Wilma, a schoolteacher and gospel quartet member, and Orvis, a former police officer who ventured into the grocery business, had an interesting start to life. At birth, he was bright red, leading his father to remark that he looked like 9 pounds of ground chuck, convincing hospital staff to label his name tag on his crib, Meat. Initially called ML for his initials, his nickname evolved to Meat Loaf in 7th grade due to his 5 foot 2 inch, 240-pound frame. The name stuck after a football coach, frustrated when Meat Loaf stepped on his foot, yelled, "Get off my foot, you hunk of meatloaf." Meat Loaf's father struggled with alcohol addiction, which began after he was medically discharged from the U.S. Army during World War II due to injuries from a mortar shell. Meat Loaf often joined his mother in searching for his father at bars in Dallas and frequently stayed with his grandmother. Despite these challenges, he attended church and Bible study every Sunday. In 1965, Meat Loaf graduated from Thomas Jefferson High School, where he participated in stage productions like Where's Charlie? And The Music Man, and played as a defensive tackle on the football team. After a brief stint at Lubbock Christian College, he transferred to North Texas State University, now the University of North Texas. In 1967, at age 19, Meat Loaf's mother passed away from cancer. Shortly after, his father, in a drunken rage, nearly stabbed him, falsely accusing him of having girls in his bedroom. Using his inheritance from his mother's death, Meat Loaf rented an apartment in Dallas and isolated himself for 3.5 months until a friend found him. He then went to the airport and took the next flight to Los Angeles. To avoid being drafted for the Vietnam War, he intentionally gained 60 pounds or 27 kilograms, to fail his physical examination but received his draft notice anyway, which he chose to ignore. In Los Angeles, Meat Loaf formed his first band, Meat Loaf Soul, which quickly garnered several recording contracts. Their debut gig was in 1968 at The Cave in Huntington Beach, California, where they opened for Van Morrison, and and the Mysterians. Meat Loaf later recalled feeling like a circus clown during his early days in the music industry. The band went through several lead guitarist changes, resulting in multiple name changes, including Popcorn Blizzard, and Floating Circus. As Floating Circus, they opened for prominent acts such as The Who, The Fugs, The Stooges, MC5, The Grateful Dead, and The Grease Band. Their regional success led to the release of a single, Once Upon a Time, backed with Hello. Following this, Meat Loaf joined the Los Angeles production of the musical Hair. With the publicity generated from Hair, Meat Loaf accepted an invitation from Motown in Detroit. Alongside fellow Hair performer Sean "Stoney" Murphy, he recorded an album titled Stoney and Meat Loaf, with songs selected by the Motown production team. Released in September 1971, the album included the single What You See Is What You Get, which reached number 36 on the best-selling soul singles chart and number 71 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Meat Loaf and Stoney toured with Jake Wade and the Soul Searchers, opening for Richie Havens, The Who, The Stooges, Bob Seger, Alice Cooper, and Rare Earth. However, Meat Loaf soon left Motown after the label replaced his and Stoney's vocals on the song, Who Is the Leader of the People, with new vocals by Edwin Starr. He then moved to Freeland, Michigan, where he became the opening act at the Grand Ballroom 80 times over the course of a year. In December 1972, Meat Loaf joined the original off-Broadway production of Rainbow, at the Orpheum Theatre in New York. After the tour, he rejoined the cast of Hair, this time on Broadway. With the help of an agent, he auditioned for the Public Theatre's production of More Than You Deserve, where he met Jim Steinman. During the audition, he performed a favorite song from Stoney and Meat Loaf, I'd Love to Be as Heavy as Jesus, and landed the role of Rabbit, a maniac who blows up his fellow soldiers so they can go home. Ron Silver and Fred Gwynne were also in the show. Between the show's workshop production in April 1973 and its full production from November 1973 to January 1974, Meat Loaf appeared in a Shakespeare in the Park production of As You Like It, with Raoul Julia and Mary Beth Hurt. In late 1973, Meat Loaf was cast in the original L.A. Roxy production of The Rocky Horror Show, playing Eddie and Dr. Everett Scott. The musical success led to the filming of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, in which Meat Loaf only played Eddie. He later remarked that this decision made the movie less good than the musical. Around the same time, Meat Loaf and Jim Steinman began working on Bat Out of Hell. Meat Loaf persuaded Epic Records to film music videos for 4 songs from the album: Bat Out of Hell, Paradise by the Dashboard Light, You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth, and 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad. He also convinced Lou Adler, producer of Rocky Horror, to run the Paradise video as a trailer for the movie. During the recording of the Rocky Horror soundtrack, Meat Loaf recorded 2 additional songs, Stand By Me and Clap Your Hands, which remained unreleased until 1984 as B-sides to the Nowhere Fast single. In 1976, Meat Loaf provided lead vocals for Ted Nugent's album Free for All when regular vocalist Derek St. Holmes temporarily left the band. That year, Meat Loaf also appeared in the short-lived Broadway production of Gower Champion's rock musical Rockabye Hamlet, which closed 2 weeks into its run. Although Meat Loaf and Steinman began working on Bat Out of Hell in 1972, they only got serious about it in late 1974. Meat Loaf then decided to leave theater and focus solely on music. He was cast as an understudy for John Belushi in the National Lampoon Show, where he met Ellen Foley, who sang Paradise by the Dashboard Light and Bat Out of Hell with him on the album. Meat Loaf and Steinman struggled to secure a record deal as their music didn't fit any specific genre. Todd Rundgren, believing they already had a deal, agreed to produce the album and play lead guitar, along with members of his band Utopia and Max Weinberg. Eventually, Steve Popovich's Cleveland International Records took a chance on them, releasing Bat Out of Hell in October 1977. Meat Loaf and Steinman formed the band Neverland Express to tour in support of Bat Out of Hell, with their first gig opening for Cheap Trick in Chicago. Carla DeVito joined them on tour, lip-syncing to the original vocals by Ellen Foley, and is also seen singing with Meat Loaf in the video clips, most notably, Paradise by the Dashboard Light, and Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth. Meat Loaf gained national exposure as the musical guest on Saturday Night Live on March 25, 1978. Later that year, he broke his leg during a performance in Ottawa, Ontario, but finished the tour in a wheelchair. Bat Out of Hell has sold an estimated 43 million copies worldwide, including 15 million in the United States, making it one of the best-selling albums of all time. In the UK, it has spent 522 weeks on the albums chart as of December 2020, and in Australia, it became the biggest-selling album of all time, knocking the Bee Gees off the #1 spot. In 1979, Jim Steinman began working on Bad for Good, the intended follow-up to 1977's Bat Out of Hell. During this period, Meat Loaf lost his voice due to a combination of touring, drugs, and exhaustion. Unable to sing, Steinman took on the vocals for Bad for Good himself. Meanwhile, Meat Loaf played Travis Redfish in the movie Roadie until his voice recovered. Steinman then wrote a new album for Meat Loaf, Dead Ringer, released in September 1981. The album featured 5 new songs by Steinman, the track More Than You Deserve, and a reworked monologue. It was produced by Meat Loaf and Stefan Galfers, with backing tracks produced by Todd Rundgren, Jimmy Iovine, and Steinman. In 1976, Meat Loaf had also appeared on the track Keeper Keep Us, from the Intergalactic Touring Band's self-titled album, produced by Galfers. The song Dead Ringer for Love became the highlight of the album, featuring lead female vocals by Cher. While it did not chart in the US, it reached number 5 in the UK singles chart and remained there for 19 weeks, boosting Meat Loaf's success even further. On December 5, 1981, Meat Loaf and the Neverland Express appeared as musical guests on Saturday Night Live. Alongside former Rocky Horror Picture Show co-star Tim Curry, they performed a skit called One Stop Rocky Horror Shop. Additionally, Curry performed the Zucchini Song, and Meat Loaf and the Neverland Express performed Bat Out of Hell and Promised Land. From 1981 to 1992, Meat Loaf lived a vegetarian lifestyle. Following a disagreement with his former collaborator Jim Steinman, Meat Loaf was contractually obligated to release a new album, resulting in Midnight at the Lost and Found, which debuted in May 1983. According to Meat Loaf, Steinman had originally penned the songs Total Eclipse of the Heart and Making Love Out of Nothing at All for this album. However, Meat Loaf's record company refused to allow him to perform Steinman's compositions, arguing they wouldn't resonate with audiences. Bonnie Tyler's rendition of Total Eclipse and Air Supply's Making Love both soared to the top of the charts concurrently in 1983. Meat Loaf contributed to the writing of several tracks on the album, including the title track Midnight at the Lost and Found. Unfortunately, financial mismanagement and a slew of lawsuits amounting to $80 million, including litigation from Steinman, led Meat Loaf to file for bankruptcy in 1983. This bankruptcy resulted in him losing the rights to his songs, although he began receiving royalties for Bat Out of Hell in 1997. In 1984, Meat Loaf decided to legally change his first name from Marvin to Michael. He cited doing so from being haunted by a Levi Strauss & Company commercial that, according to him, included the line, "Poor fat Marvin can't wear Levi's." In 1984, Meat Loaf traveled to England, where he recorded the album Bad Attitude, released later that year. The album included 2 Steinman tracks previously recorded, Nowhere Fast, and Surf's Up. The American release on RCA Records in April 1985 featured a slightly altered tracklist and different mixes. The title track featured a duet with Roger Daltrey, lead singer of The Who. Despite moderate success and a few commercially viable singles, such as Modern Girl, the album did not achieve major breakthroughs. During 1985, Meat Loaf engaged in comedy sketches in the UK alongside Hugh Laurie and also attempted stand-up comedy performances in Connecticut. Moving forward, he collaborated with songwriter John Parr on his next album, Blind Before I Stop, released in 1986 by Arista Records. The album, influenced by producer Frank Farian, included contributions from Meat Loaf on 3 of its tracks. Additionally, Meat Loaf recorded Thrashing for the soundtrack of the 1986 skateboarding film, Thrashing, directed by David Winters and starring Josh Brolin. Following successful tours in the 1980s, Meat Loaf and Jim Steinman began work on Bat Out of Hell 2, Back into Hell, in December 1990, releasing it in September 1993. The album sold over 15 million copies worldwide, driven by the hit single, I'd Do Anything for Love, which topped charts in 28 countries. Meat Loaf won a Grammy Award for Best Rock Vocal Performance for the song in 1994. Featuring vocals by Lorraine Crosby as Mrs. Loud, and accompanied by American vocalist Patty Russo on tour, the album solidified Meat Loaf's international success. In 1995, his album Welcome to the Neighborhood went platinum in the US and UK, featuring hits like, I'd Lie for You and That's the Truth, and Not a Dry Eye in the House. Meat Loaf continued his collaboration with Steinman on The Very Best of Meat Loaf in 1998, which included new songs like, Is Nothing Sacred, a duet with Patty Russo. In 2003, Meat Loaf unveiled Couldn't Have Said It Better, marking a departure as it became only his 3rd album devoid of Jim Steinman's songwriting, excluding live bonus tracks. Despite Meat Loaf's own assertion that it represented his pinnacle since Bat Out of Hell, the album didn't quite achieve the commercial heights of its predecessor. Nonetheless, it managed to secure a respectable number 4 position on the UK albums chart, bolstered by a robust world tour that included memorable stops such as his electrifying performance at the 2003 NRL Grand Final in Sydney. The album boasted a diverse lineup of songwriters, showcasing contributions from luminaries like Diane Warren and James Michael. Their involvement laid a solid foundation that also extended to Meat Loaf's subsequent venture, the 2006 release Bat Out of Hell 3, The Monster is Loose, where their collaborative efforts continued to shine. However, the journey surrounding Couldn't Have Said It Better wasn't without its challenges. During a performance at London's Wembley Arena on November 17, 2003, Meat Loaf collapsed due to health issues later diagnosed as Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. This condition, characterized by abnormal electrical pathways in the heart, necessitated immediate medical intervention, impacting Meat Loaf's performance capabilities moving forward. Despite these setbacks, Meat Loaf's resilience and dedication to his craft remained evident. In February 2004, during an Australian tour, he showcased his enduring talent with performances alongside the prestigious Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. These concerts, culminating in the live album, Bat Out of Hell, live with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, featured standout moments like the Australian Boys Choir's backing vocals on the track Testify, from Couldn't Have Said It Better. As the years progressed, Meat Loaf and Steinman resumed their creative collaboration, albeit with challenges. Steinman's health issues, including a heart attack, temporarily halted their plans for the 3rd installment of Bat Out of Hell. Despite legal disputes over trademark issues related to the phrase Bat Out of Hell, Meat Loaf and Steinman continued to maintain a professional relationship, dispelling rumors of any personal rifts. Ultimately, the release of Bat Out of Hell 3, The Monster is Loose, in October 2006 marked another chapter in Meat Loaf's storied career. Produced by Desmond Child, the album featured collaborations with talented vocalists such as Marion Raven and Jennifer Hudson. Its lead single, It's All Coming Back to Me Now, featuring Marion Raven, stormed the UK singles chart, securing Meat Loaf's highest chart position in over a decade. The album's subsequent tour, The Bases Are Loaded Tour, took Meat Loaf and the Neverland Express across the United States and Europe, cementing his legacy as a consummate performer. In 2007, Meat Loaf embarked on the Seize the Night tour, which was documented in the film Meat Loaf, In Search of Paradise. This cinematic portrayal of his journey was well received, showcasing his enduring appeal and dedication to his fans despite challenges like exhaustion and health concerns. Meat Loaf's career continued to thrive with the Casa de Carne tour in 2008, featuring new material from his critically acclaimed album Hang Cool Teddy Bear. Produced by Rob Cavallo and featuring collaborations with icons like Hugh Laurie, Jack Black, Patty Russo, and Cara Diogati, the album further solidified Meat Loaf's status as a versatile and enduring artist. In October 2011 in Australia and New Zealand, and in February 2012 worldwide, Meat Loaf released Hell in a Handbasket, produced by Paul Crook and mixed by Doug McKean with input from Rob Cavallo. The album featured tracks like All of Me, Blue Sky, The Giving Tree, Mad Mad World, and a duet with Patty Russo titled Our Love and Our Souls. During the 2011 AFL Grand Final in Australia, his 12-minute medley was heavily criticised, marking it as one of the event's worst performances it had ever had. Meat Loaf responded by calling online critics butt smellers, and the Australian Football League jerks, vowing to convince other artists not to play at the event. Later that year, a Christmas album, planned with Garth Brooks and Reba McEntire, never materialised. In September 2016, Meat Loaf collaborated with Jim Steinman on Braver Than We Are, also reworking Speaking in Tongues, Who Needs the Young, and more. He also re-recorded Prize Fight Lover. In January 2020, he expressed plans for a new album and script readings. Following Steinman's passing in April 2021, Meat Loaf announced new studio plans in November that year but would sadly pass away before recording could begin. Meat Loaf had a notable acting career beyond his 1975 role in Rocky Horror Picture Show. Some of these include his roles in Leap of Faith in 1992, and a brief role in Wayne's World. He played the Spice Girls bus driver in Spice World in 1997, and Red in Black Dog in 1998. In David Fincher's Fight Club in 1999, he portrayed Robert Paulson. He appeared in The Outer Limits in 2000, and in Tenacious D in The Pick of Destiny in 2006, he played Jack Black's father. Meat Loaf was on the Fox series Glee in 2010, and competed in Season 11 of Celebrity Apprentice in 2011, where he had a memorable showdown with Gary Busey. Personally, Meat Loaf was married twice and had 2 daughters. He first married Leslie G. Edmonds, a secretary at Bearsville Studios, in early 1979, and they divorced in 2001. Meat Loaf adopted Leslie's daughter Pearl, from a previous relationship, in 1979, changing her last name to Aday. Pearl was a member of his touring band, Neverland Express, for 9 years starting in the mid-1990s. His second daughter, Amanda, born in 1981, is an actress best known for her role as Dora Mae Dreyfus on the HBO series Carnival from 2003 to 2005. Meat Loaf married his second wife, Deborah Gillespie, in 2007. On the evening of January 20, 2022, at the age of 74, Meat Loaf passed away in Nashville, Tennessee. While no official cause of death was released, it was reported that he had been ill with COVID-19 earlier that month, and TMZ suggested that he died from complications related to the virus. He passed with his loved ones by his side and was later cremated. And there you have it. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life and legacy of Meat Loaf. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of legendary artists. Take care and bye for now.